and welcome to this week's News Desk. This is Season 4, Episode 36. I'm Chris Stafford alongside Nancy Gillen, and we are recording on September 19th, which is no doubt a date that neither of us will forget, Nancy.
Yeah, it's been quite a poignant day here in England and across the world, actually, I suppose, with everyone tuning in. But yeah, it's been a bank holiday over here because of the Queen's funeral, which took place this morning. So, definitely one that will go down in history.
Some extraordinary scenes. I was up at the Crack to watch the coverage, being 5 hours behind. So I wanted to watch, the preliminary stages of it, because there was so much pomp and circumstance and tradition and military precision and organisation all coming together for this unusual event, which, left us, I think, with images that we will never forget the event, because those images were so powerful, much less the sentiment around it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was pretty extraordinary. I think something that we have never seen before and never will see again. So, yeah, very significant day.
It certainly was. Well, that's the way I started my day, and I'm sure you did too, because it was a bank holiday. It was actually a day of national mourning, which ends, I think, today after the past several days. Was it 12 days we've had of national mourning, something like that? Since the Queen passed away, and I think that ends this evening. So it's back to business as usual tomorrow. So I also want to mention that this has been, as I say, a period of mourning, but a lot of sports have paid tribute to her, haven't they? With moments of silence, with the playing of the national anthem. We've seen that the start of the WSL season began over there. So we've seen a lot of that, I think. And you will have watched those moments, Nancy, this past weekend.
Yeah, and I think the weekend after she passed away, I think a lot of sport was suspended for the weekend, but it returned this weekend, and like you say, it was quite a fitting opportunity for people to pay tribute with a minute's silence or singing of the national anthem. So it was quite a good collective way of paying tribute.
Yeah, it certainly was. And we're going to do a roundup of the WSL seasons that kicked off, because there were some surprises along the way, and a very exciting weekend. And you'll have a lot of that detail in a minute. But I know you'll understand if I want to kick off with the news that this weekend we saw a new world champion crowned in the sport of eventing, my sport, and it came in the form of British eventing's rising star, Yasmin Ingham. And Nancy, I think I mentioned to you this in text, we talked about it, this young lady, 25 years old, it was her first championship, first time ever being on a team. And she gave notice through the way she's come up in the sport. And then with this particular horse, Banzei du Loir, she came over here to Kentucky in the spring, competed in her first 5-star competition with him. And she was second to Michael Young, no less, which takes a bit of doing in of itself. But then she goes on to Pratoni del Vivaro in Italy for the World Championships this past weekend. And she beat him. She was third after dressage. She was second after cross-country. Then he had some fences down yesterday, which moved her up. And so she was crowned the world champion. So, I mean, this is huge because she's only 25, as I said. She was very successful as a young rider when she went through ponies. She was both the gold medalist individually and team gold medalist also in Italy. That was in Arezzo in 2013. So she had a very good start to her career. Then she was in the junior team's young rider, now in the senior team. And so she's had a meteoric rise. But for her to do this on a unique partnership, is extraordinary, to beat the kind of caliber of riders that she has done. You know, a lot of very, very seasoned veterans, dare I say. Not least of all, Julia Krajewski, who was the German rider who won the silver medal. And then behind that was Tim Price, the New Zealand rider. He was the bronze medalist. And then Ros Cantor, who was a British rider who won in Tryon, North Carolina, when we had the World Equestrian Games 4 years ago. She was the world champion there. She finished fourth. So Britain did quite well overall, but didn't get on the podium, which is surprising. Germany actually took the gold medal, which is not surprising. But what is surprising, and it's been a long time coming, is that United States of America, drum roll, they got the team silver medal, with New Zealand third in bronze medal position, and Great Britain just off the podium. And Nancy, if I tell you that the final team score, Germany was 95.2, the US was 100.3, New Zealand 100.7 and Great Britain 100.9. You could see how close that battle was for the medal, for a podium position. I mean, just had nothing in it in those, in the silver, bronze, and fourth place.
Yeah, that seems incredibly close. Really, it must have been a very entertaining event to watch. It
was very, very, very exciting at the end. Thrilling, because the poles were falling down in the show jumping yesterday. It was a very tough course. It was a course designer who'd done that, who actually is a pure show jumping course designer. And that was the first championship eventing show jumping phase that he had designed. And it was pretty tough. There were poles falling down left and right. So very few clear rounds. And it made for a thrilling finish. It really was thrilling. So congratulations to Germany, world champions again. But congratulations to the US, because it's been a long time coming. The last time they were on the podium was in 2002 in Jerez de la Frontera. It was in Spain when we had the World Equestrian Games, and they won gold. And they have not been on the podium ever since in the sport of eventing. So, yeah, they've had a very long drought, and this is a long, long time coming. But very, very thrilling. I'm sorry that GB didn't get on the podium, though, Nancy. I mean, because it would have been nice if they'd have taken home a team medal. But they are they do have the individual world champion. So huge congratulations to Yasmin Ingham with Banzei du Loir winning the world championship. So that's how we're kicking off this week, Nancy, because it was just a thrilling competition. So she's our star of the week. Well, she's my pick of the star of the week. You might have a different star, because you're going to round up the start of the WSL season, aren't you now? And I know from your text yesterday, it has already launched with a few surprises.
Yeah, it was an incredibly dramatic opening weekend. I think a lot of surprise results. I think there was only one dull game, and that was West Ham against Everton, which West Ham won 1-0. But yeah, the weekend started with the match on Friday night between Arsenal and Brighton, which Arsenal won 4-0, which as an Arsenal fan I was very happy about. Man U won by the same scoreline on Saturday against Reading. So 2 4-0 results already. And then there were 4 matches on Sunday. And these were kind of the ones that really put the cat amongst the pigeons. Aston Villa, Man City, the first match of the day. And this was I was kind of sensing a bit of an upset in this one because Man City have lost so many players over the summer, not least the likes of Lucy Bronze and Kira Walsh, who have gone to Barcelona, Caroline Weir, who's gone to Real Madrid, Georgia Stanway, who's gone to Bayern. So they've lost a lot of their superstars. And in comparison, Aston Villa have made some really, really good signings, like Rachel Daly, who's come over from Houston Dash in the NWSL.
And she scored.
And she did. She scored 2 and she got an assist. So she had an incredible debut. So, yeah, it was just a real thriller. I think it was Aston Villa went 2-0 up by 35 minutes. Then City got one back, and then they equalised, so it was 2-2. And then they went in front, so it was 3-2. And then Villa equalised, so it's 3-3. And then Daly popped up and scored the winner to make the final result 4-3. So it was real back and forth. Never 100% sure which way it was going, but that's a pretty big upset on the first day of the season. And then that continued with Liverpool against Chelsea. Chelsea being the defending champions, won the past 3 editions of the WSL, and Liverpool being the team that have just come up from the Championship. I think everyone kind of thought it was only going to go one way, but it turned out to be completely wrong. Chelsea scored in the opening 3 minutes with a penalty, but then Liverpool throughout the match got 2 penalties of their own, which Katie Stengel, which I know, Chris, you're a big fan of, she scored both of the penalties, and Liverpool won 2-1. So that was...
They were so easy. This is Katie Stengel, who, if anybody's been listening to with sports for a number of years, Katie did a show with us, a football show, of course, a while ago now, a few years ago. And, she was with the Utah Royals. Nancy, do you remember, before they shut down? Then she played in Europe. Then she came back and played for Houston Dash for a while. And then she went over to sign for Liverpool. And this... obviously, I got to know her and texted her. So she did get a text in capital letters from me last night. After, but scoring those 2 penalties she just made it look so casual and so easy. She sent the goalie the wrong way both times. So with apparent ease.
Yeah, I mean, nerves of steel as well. I think particularly for the second one, it was only 7 minutes from full time. To put your team in front of the defending champions is obviously a very nervy moment, but she didn't seem fazed by it, and just stepped up and dispatched that with ease. So that was an absolutely massive result for her and the team, and it's really shaken things up a bit, especially I think because Chelsea are title favourites, and if you look at last season, it's so significant when Chelsea dropped points, because last season the title race came down to 1 point between Chelsea and Arsenal. That was it. So it's, this, for instance, this weekend could have already decided the title if Chelsea and Arsenal go on to win every match, which I'm sure they won't. And obviously they still have to play each other twice. So a lot of things can change, but it was really great, and then the final result, so it's not overshadowed by the rest of the drama. Tottenham Hotspur beat Leicester City 2-1, and well worth if anyone hasn't seen the goals from that. The 2 Tottenham goals, in particular Ashley Neville's, which was from about 40 yards out, really, really great goal. So the weekend had it all really. It was a really exciting, packed with loads of good goals, loads of good players, loads of shock results, and a lot of record attendances as well. So, it was really good to see that people off the back of England winning the Euros have kind of maintained their interest in women's football. So, it was a great success.
Yeah, it really is. That's the thing is you get them initially, you've got to keep them, haven't you? Right? One thing to follow like an Olympic Games, but you want people to stay after the games and keep watching the sport. But yes, there's one particular manager, Chelsea manager, Miss Hayes, we had a few things to say about her. She was very disappointed with their loss to Liverpool, and understandably. But did you expect them to come out as strong as that in their debut at coming in on the opening game as strong as that, especially after against Chelsea, who the league leaders won last year, of course? You'd think they might be a bit intimidated, but they weren't, were they?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely predicted that they would be fine this season in terms of I didn't think they'd be in a relegation battle. I think they would kind of solidify their place like mid-table in the WSL. I really wasn't expecting them to be able to beat Chelsea. I think they've got a really good group of players. They've got Matt Beard, who actually won the WSL twice with Liverpool in 2013 and 14, and then left and Liverpool were relegated. But now he's kind of back with the group, and he obviously seems to just create this really great sense of togetherness, which was really clear during the match yesterday. And yeah, I think it's kind of a mentality, like you said, they should have been pretty intimidated, but they weren't. They really took the game to Chelsea. So
they did.
Yeah, I was really impressed by them. So definitely, a team to watch this season.
Certainly. And in Emma, as she said, Emma Hayes was going back to the drawing board before they meet them again.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think, she's going to be really kind of scratching her head. Just not even against Liverpool, I suppose, for the rest of the season, to make sure that they don't drop any more points.
But she did say, Nancy, that that goal by Sam Kerr that was disallowed, she was offside.
Yes.
Do you remember? Yeah. She said if that had been allowed, if she had not been offside and the goal and she went on to score, she thinks that would have been a game changer. And she said, we would have owned the game. We're paraphrasing something like, we would have killed the game. Then we'd have. What she was saying was taken control of the game. Did you agree with her that it would have been a game changer?
Yeah, I don't doubt it. In that, obviously, they would have. I think that would have made it 2-0, wouldn't it? And obviously, that's a completely different scoreline. But I just think, like, that is football. Decisions don't always go your way, and I suppose you have to just perform well enough outside of those decisions to make sure that you're still winning. I'm sure there'd be plenty of things that go Chelsea's favour. It always seems to kind of balance it out throughout the season.
But if you're going to foul somebody, don't foul Katie Stengel in the area, because
I mean there were a lot of other deficiencies in that Chelsea performance. They should have been performing at 1-0. They shouldn't have been relying on a second goal to win the game, essentially. So I don't think she can complain too hard. I think she's got a case to be upset about, but I don't think she can kind of put the whole game on that decision.
No, I agree. But the offside decision actually reminds me of a table I saw over the weekend about who was leading over here in the NWSL for offside calls, and guess who is leading that by almost double everybody else, way out ahead in the NWSL?
Is it San Diego?
No, it's a player.
Oh, a player. Sorry, Alex Morgan.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, way ahead. Like 32 so far this season, and the season's not over yet. Yeah, and the others were majority were around 17, I think it was. But I thought that was an interesting statistic.
Very.
Call it enthusiasm.
Yeah, she's just very, very keen to score goals. And I mean, she still is scoring goals as well, so I suppose it goes hand in hand. Yeah,
it certainly does. Well, speaking of San Diego, who was breaking records this weekend as well over here in the NWSL with record attendance, Nancy, 32,000. And that was at their new ground for San Diego. So that was pretty impressive. I mean, and it's not full. I don't think it's full, but it's a record attendance for the NWSL.
Yeah, and it looks like I think a really good atmosphere as well, which I think is important, because you want people there to be enjoying it and it not be super quiet. But yeah, it far surpasses the previous NWSL attendance record of 25,218 from 2019. So yeah, it's a really good improvement on that. And I think it's interesting that I always just find the NWSL interesting because it's so unique and different to English football, in that you have expansion teams and teams just kind of come in and start from scratch, as opposed to England. You've got your teams that are kind of steeped in tradition, and their fans are kind of there from, people are born and they're told what football team they support. So I find it incredible, really, that you can have a team like San Diego Wave, who I suppose just kind of capitalise on an area which hasn't had a women's football team, but would have a lot of women's football fans, and then get them all to turn out at this stadium. They've only been in the NWSL for one season, so to then get the record attendance is incredible. So yeah, just really impressive. I like what they're doing over there.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And you know, Jill Ellis is president of San Diego FC. You know, she was formerly at USWNT's coach. And so now she's based on the West Coast. And she said we should now expect those bigger crowds for women's professional sport. So I hope she's right. It also reminds me, you know, we're coming to the end of our season here, Nancy, and there's another potential expansion team up in San Francisco. Have you heard about that?
I haven't, no. That's interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see how that develops, but I believe there's some fundraising going on now too, and I think there's a lot of women behind that as well, and some ex-players and some players and some athletes from other sports as well. So that would give us 5 teams on the West Coast then, with Portland Thorns and OL Reign, of course, and then San Diego and LA, the Angel City, and then if we had one up in San Francisco. So, yeah, we'll see how that develops. We'll bring you news of that as that unfolds. So, any other football that we should be aware of before we move on to other sports, Nancy?
No, I know that you did want to give a shout out to a San Diego player, though. I believe wanted to remind you about that before we forget.
Yes, thank you. My day is not the same today. A 17-year-old Jaedyn Shaw, who plays for San Diego, she scored this weekend again. Now, she's scored in 3 straight games. The last 3 games, she scored each time. She is 17 years old, Nancy. 17. And she comes and plays alongside the likes of, you know, Alex Morgan and is cool as a cucumber and is scoring. I think that's awesome. She's going to be one of our players to watch. We think, you know, the Rodhams and all the other players that we've got a few good ones over here in Washington Spirit, young players, but this one is younger than all of them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think when I was reading about her, they had to slightly amend the rules to allow her to play, which is, I think, shows kind of how young she is. Massively impressive.
Yeah, still in high school.
Yeah, well, exactly. And, you know, obviously in the US, playing in the university teams and the NCAA is massive. So she's kind of, I think, forgone that to go professional straight away, which, shows she must be a massive talent. So interesting to see how her career develops. Yeah.
I mean, no expectations, Jaedyn. You know, we don't, you know, not putting any pressure on you for 4 in a row. But yeah, good luck to her as the season comes to an end too. It'll be interesting to see what she does out of season as well, and if there's anybody else after her. But that's absolutely awesome. Very, very exciting. So I guess she knows what she wants to do for the rest of her life.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad career, is it?
All right, we're going to move on to WNBA now. You've got some news about the Las Vegas Aces. Yeah,
so it was the end of the WNBA season over in the US, and won by the Las Vegas Aces. I think that obviously, I think it's their first WNBA title, but I think the real story is with their coach, Becky Hammon, who became the first rookie coach to win the WNBA title since taking over from the team, I think last year. So she's just got a really, really interesting story that is well worth reading up on. She was a player previously, and she was always kind of underestimated a little bit because she was only 5'6". I think when she went into the WNBA draft, she was undrafted despite having a really good career at university level and going into her university's Hall of Fame. So, she kind of always had a bit of a struggle, but she did end up being in a 6-time WNBA All-Star, and she was named twice in the All-WNBA first team. And she also went on to play at the Olympics. Interestingly, naturalising with Russia, so she did represent Russia at the Olympics and won a bronze medal with them at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. And then in 2014, after she retired, she entered coaching and was actually in the the NBA, the men's basketball league in the US. And I know we've definitely talked about her on this show before because there was a time when I think it was expected that she would become the first female head coach in one of the 4 major men's professional leagues in the US.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was, I think, with the San Antonio Spurs for about 9 years as an assistant coach. She was an acting head coach for a while their coach Greg Popovich was out of action. She was really, really proving her worth, both her playing career and then her coaching career as an assistant coach at the San Antonio Spurs. I think she has suggested that if she was a man, she would have been given a chance as an NBA head coach, but she wasn't. And so eventually she took up a job as head coach of a WNBA team, the Las Vegas Aces, and has won the WNBA straight away. So kind of a really incredible story there. That's definitely worth reading up.
Definitely need to pay attention to her, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a story of someone that has constantly been underestimated and then constantly proves people wrong, really.
Yeah. Well, Emma Hayes has done that, successfully for Chelsea, and there was talk about, what a great coach she would be on a men's team as well. But Chelsea women do not want to be losing her anytime soon. But, these do stand out coaches that in different sports, Nancy, that, really make men pay attention, because they haven't had the respect maybe in the past, and certainly when they've been assistant coaches, and maybe stay assistant for a long time in different sports now.
Yeah. And I think you I suppose when you're a female coach, you always have to just be that much better than your male counterparts to kind of, stand out, I guess, and prove that you can be, at that level, which is such a shame because it's ridiculous that female coaches have to do that. But hopefully people like Becky, Hammon are changing that now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, congratulations to her. We're going to move on to a tennis story now, just as we thought things were quietening down after the last Grand Slam. But this is news from Czech teen Linda Fruhvitova. She had a win the other day. Another 17-year-old, Nancy.
Yeah, and she won the Chennai Open, and in doing so, moved into the world top 100 on the WTA tour, and actually became the youngest tennis player in the top 100, taking over from Coco Gauff as the youngest. So she's 17 years and 141 days old. So yeah, a while till she's 18 as well. And she also became the youngest singles champion on the tour since Coco Gauff won the Palmer Open last year at 17 years, 70 days old. So it's I
want to know if you counted the days. Did you do that, or did they do that for you?
Oh, I didn't do that. No, that was an article on the WTA Tour website. I was, not quite that level of detail from myself. But yeah, she defeated Magdalena of Poland 4-6, 6-3, 6-4. So coming back from one set down to win the title. And yeah, she clearly has a really, really bright future and yet another young tennis player to keep an eye on.
Yeah, very, very exciting. Good for her. I'm sure Martina Navratilova is watching that with interest too, being a Czech teen. And a Czech teen herself when she first caught the attention of the world of world tennis. So yeah, good luck to Linda. We're watching. Do you know what her ranking is right now? Then Nancy, Linda's.
Not yet. It's I think I'm not sure if they've updated it yet, but she was meant to definitely move into the top 100. So somewhere in the top 100. Right.
Okay. Cool. All right. We will watch that with interest. Finally, one more story this week comes from rugby.
Yeah, so we're getting closer and closer to the Rugby World Cup, which is starts on the 8th of October. So England, who I think it's fair to say are pretty one of the favourites. I think probably the favourite, given that they've on a really impressive unbeaten streak. I think on a 25 match winning run, I think it is now. So yeah, England.
5? Is it?
Yeah.
Really? Good grief!
And I think that's over like 2 to 3 years. So it's a very, they haven't lost a match in a very long time, and that does also include two test matches against New Zealand as well. So it's not.
And we talked about the state of New Zealand rugby, right? Because they got really hamstrung, didn't they, with COVID, not being able to play internationally, and they were always the team to the All Blacks were always the team to they're known for their rugby, probably more than any other sport. So when we started beating them, that was a big turnaround too. But that kind of win streak is extraordinary, Nancy. That's so exciting. They must be full of confidence going into these in this World Cup. Yeah, and they played Wales in their final warm-up fixture last week, and they won 73-7. So it's a pretty emphatic result there, really, against a team that aren't too bad. So the 32 player England squad for the World Cup is expected to be announced tomorrow morning. So we'll keep an eye out for that. But the Independent has found, well, from some sources, they found that the experienced scrum half Natasha Hunt is set to be a surprising omission from the squad. So she's won 60 caps and won the World Cup in 2014. And I think it was thought that she would be included because she returned to international duty during the Women's Six Nations. But Leanne Infant, Claudia McDonald and Lucy Pack are believed to be Simon Middleton's scrum half options. So, yeah, I guess that is kind of the downside when you have a team that is so competitive and so much talent in it, is that so there's always going to be those kind of high profile omissions. People are going to be missing out because the level of talent is just so high and competitive. Yeah, he's a very lucky coach. He's spoilt for choice, isn't he? Yeah, he really is. I mean, yeah, you'd be pretty excited heading into the World Cup. And Poppy and Bryony Cleal, hopefully that, Poppy used to host our rugby show, so we followed her career. She's just gotten better and better, and she and her twin sister Bryony, presumably they're in that 32 woman squad to be named. Hopefully we'll see that. I'm pretty sure Poppy will be, don't you think? I mean, I'm sure she will. I think she's definitely been one of England's best players for quite a while now. All right, well, that's coming up in October, so stay tuned for that. The World Cup from New Zealand and Australia. They're playing in both countries, aren't they? Yes, so it's spread across the two. Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for this week. Nancy, have you got any running news? How's your training going? Just kind of been keeping it up, really. Have done a couple of park runs in my local park. Just getting back into a routine, really. Well, guess what I just found out? Sent a friend who obviously was thinking about me, sent me this recently, that I'll soon be able to bike coast to coast on a trail across 12 states from East Coast to West Coast, or vice versa. How about that? That's 3,700 miles. Wow. That's it. So are you doing that, or is it? I don't know. Well, she's just sent it to me, and I'm thinking, oh, yes, I'd love to do this. You've been very tempted by it. I would be hugely tempted. Well, I heard recently that there's also one down the East Coast. You can go from Maine all the way down quite close to the coast, not against, not on the coastline, but it's East Coast, down the eastern seaboard, down to Florida, to Key West from Maine, and that's 3,000 miles. So I was thinking that would be fun. I might just do that in stages. I'm not independently wealthy enough to be doing it in one state. I wouldn't mind if somebody wants to support me. If there's anyone listening, I'll give that my best shot. I wouldn't mind doing that. I would do it if I set off to do it and I had the financial wherewithal. I would definitely do it. So now that I know I can do that, and that there's also this one coast to coast that is just a little bit longer, 3,700 miles. Gosh, these would be terrific goals, Nancy. Stay tuned. Yeah, no, for sure. I'd be very excited to hear your progress if you did sign up for that. It'd be a massive adventure. I might be gone from podcasting for a little while.
do it on the road. I'm sure it'd be possible.
Yeah, actually, that is true too. It is very possible. All right, all that to look forward to. But training continues. I will be doing another ride in the fall, so may not be as long as the one we did in the spring, simply because of time frame. Because Marcy gets off the Pacific Crest Trail. This is Marcy Cornegay, my adventure partner. So I'm waiting for her to get off that and have a bit of a rest, and then we'll do a ride in the fall, but we'll do another big one in the spring. But now I know about these other two. I might have to start planning these. Anyway, stay tuned. And I just need to keep air in my tyres, literally, for the bike and for me.
Yeah. I think, I'm excited to hear updates on that.
All right, Nancy. Okay, so what are you watching out for this week? Apart from, obviously, football, now the season's underway. What else are you following?
You know what? That's a really good question. I know the Women's Basketball World Cup starts soon. I think this week. WSL football. We've got Champions League, Women's Champions League matches tomorrow with Arsenal playing Ajax in one of the qualifying rounds. Interestingly as well, this is slightly niche, but there's the electronic, the game, like the Xbox, PlayStation game, FIFA, the football game, which has never had female players, and they're releasing the new edition soon, and they're including female players for the first time, and they're releasing the player ratings for the women's teams. It's either today or tomorrow, so I'm also interested to see that, because that's actually a pretty, even though it's kind of virtual esports, it's quite a significant moment for women's sports. In that, FIFA is a massively popular game, and having female players on it for the first time is really big. So that's a bit of a niche one as well.
I haven't heard about this, so can you send me a link and I'll put it in the show notes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's FIFA. Well, the game is FIFA 23, so it's every year a new one is released, and the one for 2023 is coming out at the end of the month. So I'll send. There's definitely a few stories about the inclusion of women's teams for the first time, so I'll send you that link.
And do you write about it on your website? A
little bit, yeah. So we've been doing the player ratings is quite a big deal, because I guess it kind of, like, obviously everyone has their favourite players and they think their players should be rated at a certain level. So it's out of 100. So the top ones are going to be, like 89, 90. And in the past, it can be quite controversial if people think, their favourite players haven't been rated correctly. So we've been doing a few rating predictions as well, like, predicting the highest rated team in the WSL and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely, when they release the ratings, we'll be writing about it as well, because it's something that a lot of people are interested in. Yeah,
sounds it. Well, remind everybody while you're there to how they can find your writings and follow you on social media.
Yeah, so on social media, I'm at Nancy_Gillen, and on Instagram, I'm Nancy_Gillen_sports. And then, I write for Give Me Sport Women, and our Twitter handle is at Give Me Sport W.
And we're, of course, at wisports.com, where the show notes and the links to these stories can be found, and also online on social media at Wisp Sports. So that's it, Nancy. You'll be back next week then for more news from around the world?
Yeah, back next week.
Okay, well, who's Arsenal playing this weekend?
We have Tottenham. Oh, yeah, we have Tottenham at the Emirates Stadium, so that's going to be a really big match. Okay, well, good luck. And who's Liverpool playing, just out of interest? I can follow this online too, but I thought you would have this all in your head. Unfortunately, I don't have Liverpool, but I do have the fixtures on a tab, and they are playing Everton. So the Merseyside derby. So there's a lot of derbies in the WSL next weekend. There we go. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll have an update this time next week when we are back with more from the Wisp Sports News Desk. Until then, thank you from Nancy and I for listening, and enjoy your sport.